Hey Sega fans, it's Dan the Mega Driver here, and well, I always hoped that this day would come, but now I get to say it. Princess Crown has been fully translated on the Sega Saturn. Yes, after several months, Idemaster has finally released version 1.0 of his Sega Saturn patch for Atlus's legendary side-scrolling role-playing game. With the translation finally finished, is it time for all of you to finally jump on this Atlus classic? Let's dig in and take a look. I've covered Idemaster's Princess Crown translation a few times on the channel, but for those that need a quick summary of the story behind this game, here we go. Princess Crown was originally developed by a team within Atlus and released exclusively on the Sega Saturn in December 1997, exclusively in Japan. Given the niche genre, 2D visuals, abundance of text, and the Sega Saturn basically being dead in the West, it was never officially translated. It was, however, ported to the PlayStation Portable some 8 years later. Sony's machine was something of a haven for niche Japanese RPGs, featuring several remasters, remakes and sequels, all getting English translations, and sadly, that also wasn't the case for Princess Crown, which remained Japanese only, even when that particular version saw a release on the PlayStation Network some years later after that. However, as is thankfully the case with so many Japan-only Sega Saturn games, the community came in to save the day. Two notable members of the Sega Saturn homebrew community, Cyber Warrior X and Sam-I-Am, announced their fan translation and then shared their work on the project to that point. Sadly, the updates on the project slowed down. From players to developers to content creators such as the Sega guys, life often just gets in the way, and that seems to be what happened here. Work was still ongoing, quietly, but all that was about to change. Enter Idemaster, a homebrew developer who hadn't worked on a project such as this before, but, per their GitHub, had dabbled with some emulation cores. Idemaster set the Saturn community ablaze when they released a playable version of the translation called version 0.3. But it wasn't just the fact that Saturn fans were able to play this classic in English for the first time that caused such a stir. Rather, Idemaster had taken an older build from Cyber Warrior X and Sam-I-Am's translation, made some tweaks and fixes, and then released it. While the build on GitHub was taken down, the terms and conditions allowed Idemaster to use the code and fork it onto his own project. Idemaster did reach out to the original creators on the Sega Extreme thread, but that was it, and while everything they have done was within GitHub's terms and conditions, there were many who felt that the approach was lacking in a little courtesy, so it caused quite a stir in the community, and to be honest, there was a little bit of unpleasantness on all sides which followed, until it settled down. Despite all of that unfortunate drama, the good news was that we had not one, not two, but 3 translations now active for Princess Crown. Idemaster was set on completing what he had picked up, Cyber and Sam revealed their latest build in a video, and Miyaku Gaming, Idemaster's former translator, split off to do their own uncensored translation. Finally though, we have a version 1.0 build of this translation, and it is Idemaster who has finished first in this kind of unique race, I suppose. On April the 8th, Idemaster published version 1.0 RC3 on their GitHub. Before that, our brothers at Sega Saturn Shiro reported that there were 2 release candidates for this translation. And now, finally, as of the 18th of April, it seems that Idemaster has finally settled on a version that he is happy to call version 1.0. The translation is complete. The full game is playable from start to finish in English, with none of the crashes or softlocks previously listed as issues in the prior versions. Per the release notes, there are some event commands that are not passing correctly, though these seem to be minor bugs and seemingly don't contribute to any game-breaking issues. Idemaster hasn't been alone in completing this project. A number of fellow Sega Saturn developers have assisted in making this translation a reality. Miyaku Gaming, before they split off, assisted in translating much of the missing text before they left the project. 2 community legends in Malenko and Derek Pescarella assisted in many of the graphical features, while Mentil also assisted in numerous ways, from translation cleanups to other graphical updates. And Paul Met contributed heavily to the text, font and graphical updates needed for this translation, even forking off their own build of Princess Crown with some significant updates, such as the increased resolution and transparency effects. Here's Paul Met's Princess Crown EX patch at work in this footage. The use of transparencies really is a brilliant touch, and the extra screen real estate here is very much appreciated. The different resolution does require slightly different OSSC settings to the original version, so bear that in mind if you're using a scaler. In any case, whether you're playing the translated Princess Crown in its standard or EX flavours, it is a truly magical experience. This 2D adventure role-playing game from Atlus remains a classic and magical experience. Created by the team that would eventually become Vanillaware, Princess Crown established their signature styles and concepts. Just look at the characters from Princess Crown next to Vanillaware's recent Unicorn Overlord. See how they behave side by side. Interesting, right? Princess Crown is primarily an action game with RPG elements. The combat avoids the usual hack and slash tropes by adding a power meter to the proceedings, meaning players can't just mash their way through the game. You need to use all the tools and items at your disposal in order to make your way through the story. For decades now, Princess Crown has only been playable in Japanese, with English-speaking players relying on things like guides to help them through the game and to tell the story. With this translation, the true majesty of Princess Crown becomes so much more palpable. Interactions with other characters, story beats such as the creature leeching off Yggdrasil, or visiting the Goblin Market, they all have so much more personality and charm when playing with this translation. This may sound like an obvious thing to say, but during this whole saga, there have been a few who have said that the game wasn't worth the aggravation that it caused, and that it wasn't even as good as its reputation suggested. As someone who has owned the Japanese game for years, I have been utterly hooked on this translated version of the game. For me, it's a classic, and the magic, the wonder and the charm of this experience is one that could only ever really be communicated through a translation such as this. A big thanks has to go out to Eidmaster for taking this project to its endpoint. Despite a lot of criticism in how he initially went about this work, and fully aware that he did have a lot of collaborative support from across the community, not least from the original creators of the original patch Semi-Am and Cyberia X, it is Eidmaster who has finally seen this project to completion. It is he who has delivered the patch, and it is he who has given the Sega Saturn fans an English version of Princess Crown, and from what I have seen, has conducted himself quite professionally through the whole project. Atlus's Princess Crown is often described as niche. It's why neither Sega nor any other publisher has ever localised it. It's partly why it's taken so long for a translation to come to completion. But, my fellow Sega fans, it is time for that to change. This game is an absolute work of art, and now that it has been fully translated, everyone should play it. It is an incredible experience with a majesty that is absolutely timeless. The links to Eidmaster's GitHub are in the description below, which will give you the patch files you need and the directions to patch the game yourself. Let us know what you think about Princess Crown and whether you'll be playing it now that the translation has been completed. But until next time, this has been Dan the Mega Driver of the Sega Guys, and I will see you on the Sega side.